dark side of Bali. It's not all parties and Russian and hot Russian blondes. You know, it's not all that.
It's the Saigon Saga. Subscribe right now.
Can you just tell us the story of your name?
So my full name is Agustinus Theodorus. That's actually my parents gave me that name because we're Catholic, and in Indonesia, Saint Augustine is Agustinus, and it's also the name. It's similar to the name of the month of August. So because I was born in August, they gave me the name Agustinus, and then Theodorus is a name. It means like gift from God. So, and then I have my family name behind me, but I don't usually use it. I just use my first name and my middle name. That means gift of God in the month of August to the family, something like the family name. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. My parents really thought about it.
That's a pretty powerful name. Yeah.
Try to live up to it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you are. Yeah. And we'll all find out more today on today's show. So tell us a little bit about you grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia. What was that like?
In the first few years, it was fun. But then when you grow up and then you start to think for yourself and you go into junior high school and high school, it kind of sucks.
Why?
You realize that there's a lot more to the world, and then Jakarta is kind of shit. Like one of the reasons is it's the most, right now it's the most polluted city in the entire world. And most Indonesians would be proud because finally we're number one in something, but I mean, number one most polluted city in the world. And yeah, the quality of life in Jakarta is nice when you only account for the services, but if you account for like the busyness, the traffic, and everything else, it's not really up there. And I have a lot of scars on my face because of acne, and it's because of the pollution that triggers something in my skin. So that's why every time I go back to Jakarta, and then I go back to Jakarta once a year to visit my family, and then I fly back to Bali, my skin would be like red and everything. Everyone was like, would be looking at me, and I was like, yeah, I mean, this is what you get for living there. At least for me. That's why I decided to move somewhere else. That's one of the reasons I moved somewhere else, but we'll get into the other reasons later, I guess.
So, what's one thing that you do miss about Jakarta?
I'll be honest with you, Zach, nothing.
Okay.
If I can fly my entire family to Bali, where I live right now, I'd do that. But the thing is, they all have a job, right? So I mean, like, I can't fly the entire the company they work for as well. So it's kind of like an issue. But no, I don't miss anything about it. If I ever move back to Jakarta, I'll be depressed. I think I regressed in life.
Well, the good thing is you found a way to get out of Jakarta, and now you live in Bali. So, take us through that process. What made you want to go there? How'd you get there?
So it was the pandemic back then, right? And I was working in my first job, and my manager just called me and said, "Hey, do you want to go to Bali and we can rent a villa for a month and stay there and work remotely?" And I was like, "Okay, that sounds like a good idea." We stayed there for a month. Long story short, they all flew home, and I decided to stay. Now I didn't know why. I did know why I wanted to stay. I was already planning on moving out from my home, and I was thinking like, if I want to rent a room in Jakarta and I want to rent a room in Bali, the price is the same. So economically, it makes sense. And then, if any one of you listening has been in Bali during the pandemic, you'd understand how serene and peaceful it is. And so, after experiencing that, I was like, why the hell do I want to leave? Right? Why would I want to leave? So I stayed there, and then I think 2 months after I stayed, I got a new job, a better paying job. So that just sealed the deal. And the people who hired me did try to fly me back to Jakarta, but I gave them like an ultimatum, something like, well, the reason why I wanted to work with you guys is because I wanted to stay in Bali. If you guys want to fly me back, I think we should reconsider our deal. And they're like, okay, you can stay there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because they really needed me at the time. I was like the one of their high performing software engineers. Out of like 7 people, I did like 33% of the work.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just how efficient I was back then. Now I'm not too efficient because jujitsu ruined my life. But I mean,
So which part of Bali do you live on?
uh, I lived in Kuta near the airport for a year. It was the best until the traffic came back. But after that, I moved to Canggu near my gym, Bali MMA. If you ever heard of it, yeah.
Of course, I've been there. That's my favorite part about Bali.
Exactly right. So I was in Bali MMA. I trained Bali MMA, and so I decided to live in Canggu. But every 6 months, I always leave Bali to travel around. So then I decided to, hey, why don't I stop renting in Canggu and just live anywhere in Bali at the time that I wanted to live. And so right now I live in Uluwatu. So my friend, I got a good friend from Italy. He flew back to Italy and then he left me his villa like by the cliffs in the south of Uluwatu. So I was living there for a month, taking care of his house.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was pretty nice, man. Yeah, it was the first time a girl came up to me and I said, "Oh, where do you live?" "Oh, by the cliffs up there." "You see that house?" "Yeah, that's me."
I bet that was helpful.
That was helpful, yeah, but it kind of weeds out the gold, doesn't weed out the gold diggers though. I like it better when I was like, "Oh, I live in a small shack, studio apartment. Do you want to come to my place?" And they're like, "Hell no!" And I'm like, "It's fine, it's fine. I don't want you there anyway." Yeah.
Awesome. So one last thing about Bali. So what's there's if someone's thinking about going to Bali, but they've heard like, oh, it's overcrowded and tourists. What would be one reason they would go to Bali to visit for a real experience? What would you recommend?
I would recommend not going. Look, I'm a very honest person. If you don't have friends there, if you don't have a business there or any kind of goals there that's tangible other than going around and traveling and facing traffic, then don't go. I mean, Bali is great, Bali is wonderful, but the reason I stayed is because I already have a community there, I already have friends there, I have a business there, and I have a good reputation among the technology expats there. So it incentivizes me to stay and come back. But if you're thinking of traveling maybe for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's fine. But yeah, everything about the traffic, the pollution, and everything, it's true. It's true, especially in the beaches near the airport. It's usually more dirty than the beaches like way down south by the Indian Ocean or east near the Bali Lombok Strait. So the Bali Lombok Strait is like one of the deepest straits in the world. That's where most shipping goes. If they don't go through the Malacca Strait, they go through there. So that area is still the beaches around that area are still clean. Other than that, well, I wouldn't. For Indonesians, I would still recommend because beaches in Jakarta, beaches in other parts of Indonesia is worse than Bali. But for foreigners who want to have like a good experience, you gotta choose the places you want to go to first. And there is benefit of like looking up if the how would you say it? Instagram photos are exactly like the reality. Because for example, when I left Bali earlier this year, it was February 2024. There's this video going around Instagram Reels or TikTok. I don't know. I don't use both. But I got it from a YouTube Shorts recommendation. So there's this British woman that's taking a photo of like taking a video of the entire beach in Kuta, all the way to Canggu, and then she showed like all the trash that washed up by the beach. And this is not because of as far as I know, this is not because of the locals there. It's because the currents, they bring the trash up to the coast every in the month of between month of January and March. So there are those kind of situations in Bali that can make your experience worse. So those are the kind of things that you should look out for. Like other than that, maybe like always wash your ears every time you finish surfing in Canggu. You don't want to get an ear infection
The pollution.
because the sewage they just put it in there, man. It's-
Oh, I did not.
yeah, it's dark side of Bali. Dark side of Bali. It's not all parties and Russian and hot Russian blondes. It's not all that.
So tell us a little bit about the what's the tech scene like in Bali?
Oh, actually, I have a lot of good news about that because it's really good. Now, maybe I'm biased because I own my own tech company, right? I run my own tech company in Bali and I provide services to like a lot of different people in tech, like expats, locals, and everything. One thing about Bali that's been going around is uh, there's this term called, and I hope it doesn't sound too cringe, right? It's called Silicon Bali. So Silicon Valley is a concept of where like people in come to Bali to network and create communities. So there is some truth to that because you meet a lot of interesting people in Bali that you can't meet anywhere else because Bali is such a well-known tourist destination and most people fly there from all over the world. Like there's direct flights from Qatar, Dubai, and any other place. It's very the environment is also very beneficial for you to get to know like business development, right? Like there's this thing I heard from one of my friends is business development, most of it is like just drinking with your clients. So it's Bali is a good place to entertain your clients. So it's kind of a good place to meet like, oh, this guy, let's say one person you found one guy that owns like another tech company and he's trying to find like services to build his let's say his application, his product, and rather than hire some Indian or Vietnamese guy online, he meets you and then you be able to make good rapport with him and everything, and that goes a long way in a business, right? I noticed this as well because I start hiring people right now, and I trust people more that I see in person. And to be fair, when the first remote work thing came out, I didn't believe that. I was like, you can make rapport anywhere, but now because I'm in the other side, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? My old bosses that say like, yeah, sometimes you still need to meet in person to do business, da 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 da. They were kind of right that there's some truth to that, and I hate to admit it, and that's why I'm more outgoing now. Most of my time spent in Bali is just meeting people constantly, like scheduling. Other than that, maybe jujitsu and work. Other than that, but yeah, the tech scene in Bali is really good. And if you're a software engineer, you're a web developer or UI UX designer, anything that involves technology, I think you should go stay in Bali for at least 1 month. Try to get into some community events. I guarantee you, if you're the right person, you don't have to be extroverted, but you have to be like a bit like social smart. You do fine. You do fine. Make good connections. Just keep in touch with them now and again, and one day it's gonna bear fruit. And actually, that's how my business took off. Actually, um, I've been involved in the Bali tech community, mostly like blockchain, Web3, for about, I think, 2 years now. And because I've been active, I've always shared like about myself. Like I'm a software engineer. I also started running my own developer community there. I made a name for myself of like, oh, Theo's a software developer. If I need anything, maybe he knows a guy. Maybe he can help me out. Something like that.
Oh wow. So what's in short? What's your company about?
So actually, 5 days ago, we just released our brand. So it's called S21 Labs. So S21 Labs is a develop software house. So we develop software mainly right now. Our main clients are blockchain Web3 companies, but we're about to onboard like one client who's not really Web3, but more involved in like AI and how would you say it, matchmaking app, like dating apps. Yeah, so we're slowly expanding and we're slowly building up to find new clients. But yeah, it's mainly a software development studio, software development house.
For our viewers who aren't completely familiar with Web3, what's the biggest upgrade that Web3 brings?
Oh, well, the biggest upgrade that Web3 brings right now, the most visual thing would be a big wealth transfer. If that makes sense. So the barriers for you to create like your own token and everything is quite low. So if you're a good marketer, you can just like make a new token and you market it. And now you might think like, Theo, that's a scam. And I'm saying like, yeah, it is. But right now, that's the main thing that people are doing. Like it sounds dark and bleak a bit. Like, oh, so the main use of Web3 is just like scamming people. But yeah, I mean, most of the uses that are user facing is like that. But for B2B, business to business, it's different. For example, I have a good use case. So insurance companies, electronic medical records. If someone wants to make electronic medical records, it's not useful for the hospitals and it's not useful for the patients. Why it's not useful for the patients? Well, do they really need to keep it and look at it? Like people might say, yeah, sure, people need that, but have you ever looked at your medical record? I look at it maybe when I'm sick. That's it. Hospitals, they do need to keep track of it, but some hospitals are sometimes incentivized not to keep too much of too detailed of a medical record because it can be like litigation against them, something like that. So it becomes an issue. So the people who need medical records are usually like let's say insurance companies, right? So if you want an electronic medical record that's tamper proof and it has like proven like, oh, who changed this, who changed that, you can use Web3 technologies like blockchain to do that. That's one of the best things about blockchain and Web3 is you can make your data tamper proof and secure while also having it available to you because of an encryption and everything. And yeah, there's like two sides of the coin in this story. And the public side is very dark, like the meme coins. But behind the scenes, I see that many people are using these technologies for the good. We just need to weather the storm a bit, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome, very good, very interesting. So what keeps bringing you back to Saigon?
Oh, well. So, the thing about men is, we make stupid decisions. So, what else would be would push a man to make stupid decisions other than a woman?
Oh, we don't have.
Yeah, so I met a girl here. She's really nice. And then the reason why I kept coming back was I wanted to see her, right? But because the relationship didn't end well, like it ended a couple of days before my current trip. It's fine, whatever. You just live with it, I guess. But yeah, that's the number one reason I came back to Saigon. The second reason is because, well, you guys are here. Yeah. And I was like, that's why I took the risk anyway, because if I came here and then I only want to see the girl and then she's not here, I'd be miserable. But if I came here and then you guys are here, well, at least I'm in Saigon Saga, right? Yeah. So also like Saigon is a pretty nice place. I lived in Bali for 2 years and I've never felt appreciated like I am in Saigon. Like people just look at me. I just arrived in the airport 4 days ago. I was walking out of the airport. I went into La Highlands Coffee across the airport. And then I was like waiting for the grab. It's raining and everything. And two old ladies came in and they ordered coffee, sat next to me, and then they started talking to me like, "Oh yeah, I like your hair."
Wow.
And I'm like, "That's what I like. That's why I keep coming back." In Bali, people look at me and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's just another Brazilian." I don't even speak Portuguese. I was walking down the beach and I'm Indonesian, right? Another Indonesian guy came up to me, starts speaking in Portuguese, and I had to reply to him. I don't understand what you're talking about in Indonesian. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were a foreigner." And I'm like, "Okay, it's fine, bro." But here, I know I'm a foreigner. They know I'm a foreigner. They like me, and I'm like, I like the attention. So yeah,
Always good to have you here in Saigon, and you've been able to train at a few different gyms here in our Saigon grappling community. And what's what's uh, what's your impression of the Saigon grappling community?
I think it's one of the strangest, I would say, because maybe I come from Bali where the gyms are very competitive, right? But in Saigon here in Ho Chi Minh City, the gyms are not that competitive. Actually, they welcome like, oh, we're gonna have an event, like go ask people from that gym to come here, and they're all cool with each other. And then the gyms are small enough for you to know who the owner is, like who the head coach is, and everything. It's not like one of those big gyms with like hundreds and hundreds of people every day that you see, and then you don't even know like who owns this place or like who teaches. Like, oh, and then you find out during the class, you know. So I feel like the sense of community is stronger here. That's for sure. That's what I like about the gyms in Saigon. That's definitely the number one thing here. But the reason why I say it's strange is because at the end of the day, I realize gyms are businesses, and I just maybe I just haven't had the time. I haven't had the time to think about like why aren't they like more competitive with each other or something like that. It's kind of weird, but I mean that's just me because I'm like I try to make sense of things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here it is unique here because we're so early in the growth of jiu-jitsu, and it's growing very fast here in Saigon and all of Vietnam. And a lot of the smaller gyms have banded together to help each other grow like as a community. So we've got clothing brands, we've got gyms that offer different things, and we hold events to help benefit everyone in the community. So it's really cool. It's a really special time here in Saigon, in Vietnam, for grappling and jiu-jitsu. So what? So how did you start grappling? When did you start doing jiu-jitsu? Why did you start?
So I'm gonna take you back about like 2.5 years. 2.5 years ago, I arrived in Bali. I flew my friend in from Jakarta, I think, because I was bored, and then he does jujitsu, right? And we were driving around the island, and then I just lamented to him something like, "Man, I used to do badminton. People there suck. I mean, I can't play badminton for the death of me, and I just wanted to join like a community where I can do something with somebody, you know? But because I'm not that good, they don't want to invite me to play with them. It's like, okay, so how am I gonna get good, right? So it becomes this very strange thing, and then I was kind of like, I was just really disappointed at the community that I found. It wasn't in Bali; it was back in Jakarta, and that's one of the reasons why I don't think I don't want to come back. But yeah, I was in Bali, and I told this to my friend, and he said, you should try jujitsu. The community there is pretty good. You might meet like interesting people. At first, I was like, oh, I don't know, man. What if I'm not good enough? What if this? What if that? And he just like, Theo, just try. And he said that to me like at let's say the first week of the month, and then it took me like 2 weeks before I can muster up enough courage to try it myself. And then my friend offered to come with me, but then he bailed. Right? I'm like yeah, I would. My first jujitsu class was me alone with long nails. Me alone with long nails going to a class, and then you come in. It was in Bali MMA, and then most of everyone was not Indonesian, and I was like, oh my god, my English is fine, but I mean, I've never been in a situation where, at least up until that point, where I'm the only Indonesian in the room. So it was very daunting for me, but And this is why I like my coach back home is because he came up to me, like Austin. He came up to me and he was like, "Oh, what's your name? My name's Theo." Da, da, da. And then and then he asked me to join the class, and I joined the class and everything. And for the first few weeks, he'd always like check in on me, like, "How was the class? How did you feel?" And that made me feel welcome. So I always say this to my friends is the only reason I still train at Bali MMA is because of Austin. If Austin wasn't there, I would leave. Anyway, so that's how I got introduced to jiu-jitsu. At first, I trained like only once a week, get the feel of if I want to continue doing it. But then after I had more friends there, we hang out outside of jiu-jitsu more. It becomes this fun thing of like, oh, you meet friends and then you can show them a new move that you learned, or you can show them that you can beat their ass and that you're better, you know? Yeah, you have to have that competitive mindset a bit if you're doing jiu-jitsu if you want to get good. But yeah, that's that's how it starts.
Wow, yeah, that's great. Well, it's good that you started very young because you've got so much time ahead of you. You know, so many people start in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even in their 60s before they start. Okay, we're gonna play a game, read it out loud, and then finish it.
A goal I am working toward now is heel hooks. Yeah.
Why do you want to learn heel hooks?
I just feel like it's the next step after ankle locks. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Watch out, guys. All right, the next one.
The most difficult moment in grappling was when uh, a guy 50 kilograms heavier than you sits on you on mount. That's terrible. That's terrible. So I weigh 67 kilograms. Back in Bali, I think I was training with a guy who weighs 111. Oh my God. And he was a higher belt too. I was demolished. It wasn't a good feeling. The demolished part is fine, but when he was like pressuring you, you just wanted to tap.
Yeah. So, is there a moment in grappling during your journey that you felt like, okay, I need to change the way I think or approach grappling overall to get better? Do you have an experience like that?
I have that experience actually, and I have it a lot every 3 months. So every 3 months, I learn this new move that I like to use on people. The first time I had that circle was I learned my first triangle. I got my first triangle on somebody, then I just spammed the triangles on everybody. And then after that, people now know I use triangles. Okay, I'll just do the Ezekiel choke, right? Got on mount, do Ezekiel's, and then now people can defend that. And then I was like, okay, I don't know what to do next. And then that's when my leg lock saga started, right? Yeah, so I started ankle locking, straight ankle locking people, and then after that, it's like I think 2 months after that, I my coach taught me the Aoki lock, and that's when I started Aoki locking people, and after that, started toe holding people. Yeah, and after that, I turned back to the good side. You know, I removed the dark side in me. No more leg locks for a while, and then I just did a Kimura from close guard right now. That's just the thing I'm working on. Yeah. Other than that, uh, yeah, the only significant moments of change is when I need to learn a new technique, like a new offensive technique, because throughout my jujitsu time, I've never, I've always been defending most of the time because, well, I was a white belt, and then people in Bali MMA are pretty high level, so I will have to defend myself, defend myself, defend myself. The defense and the recovering guard, I never really had a problem with because people just smash me all the time. But the offensive techniques, because I only knew very few and I only had a few chances to try it. That's the recurring moments of like, oh, every 3 months I have to learn something new. But yeah, now after a lot of iterations, now I have a couple of things that I use regularly. Like, of course, I don't use everything because some of them I realize I just wasn't doing it right. And I was doing, like, for example, I was just doing a triangle on a white belt and he just tapped, not because my triangle was good, because I tried it on higher levels, it doesn't work. But there are some other techniques that do work, like the ankle locks. Done. I mean, like ankles, straight ankles. Yeah, yeah, I like those.
That's incredible. Okay. We have two more left.
Someone who has had a tremendous impact on me but might not know it is. It's not someone, there's a lot of people. So I'm a pretty lucky person. So when I was growing up, my dad wasn't home a lot. He was there, he was a good dad, but it's if you're only home and you only see me maybe an hour a day, so that adds up to like about 5 to 7 hours a week. And then during that time, you're either tired or there's no bonding time, right? So as I was growing up, I noticed this when I was in my early 20s, like when I was 19, 20 years old. I noticed that most of my friends, most of them are 10 years older than me. Most of my friends are usually in their 30s, and I'm just like, I haven't even reached 25 yet. So um, the reason is because I don't have this sort of like mentorship that I can count on. So, for example, when I wanted to start my business, there's this one guy, Indonesian guy. He's from Bandung. He helped me like set up everything, like my company. He taught me how to do my taxes. I reduced my taxes significantly because of that. And when it comes to like how the like for example, I couldn't cook when I first arrived in Bali, but now I can bake and make pasta because my Italian friend who uh, lent me his house, he taught me every single thing he could teach me about cooking. But he himself couldn't cook that well. He said that because he doesn't really mind about like how the food tastes. It still tastes good, mind you, but I mean he doesn't focus on food as much as most Italians do. But I learned how to cook. I learned how to like let's say I learned how to do carpentry from him. So I made my own shelves, made my own like chairs and everything. So I'm pretty fortunate that throughout my life I could have done like terrible things, like for example drugs. I could have gone into like an alcohol drinking spree. Like everyone around me in Jakarta, not everyone, but the people I surround myself with in Jakarta, some of them were into that. But I was pretty lucky that I wasn't lured into it. And I ended up meeting people that added value to my life. And so it's not specifically one person, but a whole lot of people that I can't even think about in this entire moment. Like there's maybe like 5 or 6 people, and I only mentioned two. Yeah, so I'm a pretty fortunate person, Zach. I'm just saying that. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, well, you're wise beyond your years, and you know to you attract high quality people. You know, and you know who to spend your time with, and you're creating good habits early in life. You know, which is good. You already have your own company, and so that's incredible. All right.
one time I tried to pick up a woman in Bali, but okay. So I was walking home, and I forgot how I got into that mindset, but I think I was reading some of like the pickup artist things, right? It was talked on. It was in my jujitsu group, my jujitsu friend group. We were just talking about that a lot, and then I was like, pickup artist. I didn't. First time I've ever heard of it. And then I was walking down Kuta Beach, and then there's this beautiful blonde woman sitting by herself, looking at the sunset. So I was like, walk. She was over here, and I was like walking, right? Like walking. I was like, she's pretty. Okay. Oh, and she's alone. Okay. And then I just keep walking, keep walking. I was like, fuck, she's pretty and she's alone. And I was like, game on mode, game mode, baby. I'm like, hell yeah. I went straight back, like back over, and I was like hiding behind a tree. I was like, you know that meme where a black guy with a yellow suit is like, yeah, I was like that, baby. I was like, let's see, no boyfriend, no boyfriend. Okay, let's go. And I went in, right? I went in, and I was like, hey, my name is Theo. And then the first thing she said to me, I don't want to buy anything. And I'm like, relax, relax. I'm not, I don't want to sell you anything. I just want your number. And then she just smiled, you know, she was like, oh, I'm so relieved. And then she just flashed the ring. And then I'm like, I'm sorry. Have a good night. And that's it.
Well traveled, and to be only 24 years old. 24, right? Yeah. So it's and I think the first time I ever left my country was when I was 24. Um, so so what's the most interesting thing you've done in all of your travels?
So I've been to a total of 9 countries. And out of all of them, my favorite time was when I was in Myanmar. Do you know how to say hello in Myanmar? Ming Lapa. Exactly. Ming Lapa. That's how you say hello. The Burmese people are really nice. And when they're having like a bit of a civil war at the moment, so traveling there is a bit dangerous. Like if you walk on the wrong side of the country, you can probably be thought of like a rebel. Especially if you look like me. I look like every single thing on this planet that's brown, right? And so I wanted to take a risk because I already took like a week off from my business. And so I was in a town named Tongyi. Tongyi is the northern town, the capital of the Shan state in Myanmar. And I wanted to go to Inle Lake. I was inspired to do that by an Iranian man I met in Chiang Mai. He was saying like, "Oh, Myanmar is beautiful. You should go to Inle Lake." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to Inle Lake then, my brother." And I was I was already in Tongyi. I took a bus there from Yangon, and then I was looking up like the taxis, right? Like asking people how much it would cost for me to take a taxi to Inle Lake, and then they said it'll cost about like $2 Australian, which is about like a $1.50 for a 45-minute ride there. And I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't short on money at the time. I'm I'm not like a frugal traveler by any means of the word, but I was thinking, $1.50 for a 45-minute ride. Mm, you know what? You know what would be more um, invaluable? It would be, what if I walked the entire distance using my backpack from Tongi to Inle Lake? I looked it up on Google Maps. It took about like 6 hours of continuous walking. So I would say like maybe it'll take me 8 to 9 hours, right? Of walking and then taking a break, walking and taking a break. So I did it. I exited my hotel after breakfast, and I made sure I ate a lot so I will have enough energy to continue on. The only thing I carried with me was my the clothes on my back and my laptop, obviously, a bread on the side of my hip here, and one 1 liter water bottle. I just walked through the city, and then I walked through the slum areas, you know. It was really weird when I got to the slum because a bit of like the village, not slum, maybe you call it like a village area. It's really weird because the Google Maps started to stop working. And then it's like a labyrinth, right? I don't know where to go. And then Google Maps told me to turn right. I turned right, then I turned left. The next thing I know, it's all bushes. So I just walked through the bushes, right? I was wearing a shirt like this. I was like walking through the bushes. I wasn't afraid because if I got hit, if I got, I wouldn't be cut by thorns because I was wearing a long sleeve shirt. And next thing you know, I came up in some random person's backyard. Their kids was like, hello. And I was like, Ming Lapa. And then the mother comes. I was like, ah. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. And they're like, Ming Lapa, Ming Lapa. I just say hello, hello. And I just ran away, you know? And they understood I was lost a bit. And then they came up to me and say, and then they were like, well, from their gesture, they were like, oh, what are you doing here? Da, da, da. And then I didn't have internet at the time. So I was just like, like it's just like nodding your head and saying that I'm gonna go that way, and I just went that way. There was nothing weird happening. Like they didn't want to do any harm to me, but it's just that those awkward experiences, and I just continued walking for about 9 hours. After that, it's just like flat hills and flat lands and then hills and everything. I had to stop and get a stick though because of the wild dogs. Yeah, it was pretty strict.
So you're in a country that's at civil war, and you have to go like how many kilometers?
I don't know I forgot the kilometers, like the distance, but I walked for 9 hours.
Okay, so you need to go 100 kilometers or so, and you're in a war-torn country.
Yeah.
You could get a cheap taxi or a bus if you wanted to. Like it costs $1, but you decide, and you don't even know anything about the country. It has almost no internet, and you have like bread and a bottle of water, and you decided to do it.
Yeah, and they only have electricity 4 hours in a day. It was a fun time, man. Look, I always say this to people, right? Go to Myanmar. I wouldn't say it's fun.
So you ended up getting lost. So what happened?
I didn't get lost. I was on the right track. I just needed to get a stick to fight off some wild dogs, and then I ended up using the stick as a walking stick because my right ankle is not used to walking for 9 hours for some apparent reason, and then it started to hurt. I can't even push my ankle forward at that point. So yeah, I reached the town where Inle Lake is at about 8 or 9 p.m. And then it was very dark, no lights, no nothing. I was walking by myself. Then suddenly, I heard someone say, "Hello," right next to me, right? And I'm like, it's completely pitch black, man. It's pitch black. You can't see anything. And then someone said hello, and I just looked to the side of me, and there's this like you can see their the white side of their eyes. And then he asked me this question: "Do you want to rent my bicycle?" And I'm like, no, bro, I don't want to rent your bicycle. Go away. I'm fucking scared shitless. And I just continued walking. And then I reached my hotel. All the electricity was off. I had to like wait until the electricity was on. It was like 11 p.m. so I could charge my power banks, my laptop, my phone, and everything. And then I went to sleep. But it was a good time, man. I can tell you one thing. After that, I'm sold on hiking and walking, and that's why I joined the Saigon Rocking Group.
That's why.
Yeah, yeah. I ask Brian. Every time I drop from the airport in every single country now. I never take a taxi. When I was in Da Nang, I walked 2 hours from the airport to my hotel. And when I was in Laos, I was in Luang Prabang at the time. Um, I, I I asked the hotel owner, "Hey, can you help me and buy a ticket? I want a train ticket to Vang Vieng. It's easier if you ask your hotel owner to buy the ticket for you because they're Lao." And they say, "Okay, do you want to add transport with that?" And I'm like, "No, no, thank you, it's fine." And then he was like, "Oh, but it's gonna take 3 hours." Yes, I know, 3 hours by foot. And he was like dumbfounded, right? And I just walked the entire distance. And then when I reached the place. I took a photo and I sent it to the hotel owner. And then he just gave me like claps. He just gave me a clapping emoji and said that you're a strong man. And then when I went in, this is like the best part, right? When I went into like the train station, Luang Prabang railway station, everyone was looking at me and clapping at me. All the expats. It was like, "Yo, bro, where are you from?" "I'm from Bali." That's what I said, right? "You walked from the city to here for 3 hours?" Like, "Yeah." "Hell yeah, man, stay strong." And everyone was like happy and everything. It was one of the best times. I instantly made 20 friends there. Instantly. Like, yeah, man, it was good experience. I would recommend everyone to walk. You understand the people more and everything.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Any other unique travel habits that you do other than walking from the airport to wherever you're going when you land to a new country?
So one, I don't know if it's quite unique, but because I'm a software engineer, I'm kind of nerdy. So I always travel with a scale, a portable scale. So every time I go to the airport and then I know that they have like 7 or 8 kilogram maximum, I always like, okay, I put like multiple layers of clothes on and make sure like my bag weighs less than 8 kilograms or 7 kilograms. And that's like one of the fun things about traveling for me. It's like, oh, trying to get over the rules in like different weird ways. Yeah, it's just like gaming the system. And that's why I think I like to do my taxes by myself because it's like gaming the system a bit, you know? So yeah, that's the other interesting thing about my travels at least. Oh, maybe one more. You can use that one or this one, but every time I travel, I was fortunate to meet good people. I'll give you an example. In Casablanca, in Morocco, I was doing jujitsu, right? In jujitsu, if you do jujitsu, you can go anywhere in the world and you can make friends easy. So I was like in Morocco. I was in Casablanca. I was rolling with this guy, and then afterward we start talking and we build up a good rapport between each other, and then we exchange Instagrams, right? And his name is Amir. Amir, yeah, his name is Amir. He owns like a coffee company and everything. And I messaged him one day like, "Hey, I want to bring coffee back to my family back home, my friends and family. Do you have any recommendations?" And he said yes. He gave me the recommendations, but afterward he asked me, "Today's your flight out of Casablanca, right?" And I said yes. Okay, I'm gonna get out of work at 10 a.m. so that I can drive you around the city. And then he really like, dude, I didn't know at the time, but turns out I was living in the most ghetto part of Casablanca. And then he was like, "You're really, really fortunate no one robbed you yet." And he was like, I can't believe you stayed here. And I was like, "Well, this feels like Indonesia, man." But anyway, yeah. I he arrived, he messaged me, and he arrived in his Audi, and I'm like, "Oh, this guy's rich." Okay. And then, and then I went in his car, and he's like, "Okay, you packed everything?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take you to the airport afterwards." I'm like, "Take me to the airport afterwards?" Okay, bro. And then he drove me around. He showed me like all the places in Casablanca. He gave me like a third of an hour and a half tour that if I would have done it myself with the taxi driver, would have cost me like 6 hours because they want to scam me. He took me like on a 1.5 hour tour, and he gave me like all the history and lessons and everything based on what he knows, of course. And then afterwards, he bought me lunch. And you know, I'm Indonesian. We have this thing in Indonesia where it's called the gaanak. It means like you don't feel nice when someone does that. So, for example, if someone buys you something, you feel bad because, oh, uh, I didn't do anything for you, so what should I do, right? It's not like feeling bad because that person does something, but it's feeling bad because now you don't know what to do to pay it back, pay it forward. So I knew that Moroccans have the same kind of mentality. So when he wanted to pay for my lunch, I tried to pay for everything first. Then he was like, "No, Habibi, it's on me, it's on me." And it's like, okay. And I just asked him this question: "How can I ever pay you back?" He said something like this: "When you're older and you're already in my position, remember what I did to you, and push it forward to another person. Bring it forward." And I was like, "Yes, sir."
That's what an incredible story. So the hospitality and the caringness of the Moroccan people is what something that surprised you.
It did surprise me because Morocco, well, I'm sorry to say, but I mean they have a bit of reputation of like scamming people, and I did get scammed a couple of times. Like they forced like a scarf on me and then asked me to pay like $20. But Yeah, that really surprised me that there's like duality to this to the nation and the people and the culture. I would love to come back to Casablanca one day, Amir. I'll see you again.
Great. Wow. A traveler and a businessman. Um, so speaking of business, you have to do a lot of negotiations and a lot of things when you start your own business. Um, what's one of the more remarkable things that you've negotiated so far as an entrepreneur?
So I wouldn't say that it's my best negotiation when I was an entrepreneur because at the time I was still doing a day job. But I can tell you one thing, this story. So after I think it was about 2 years ago, I was working part time for this one company, and then I outperformed their full time employees even, and I ended up working like 33% of the work in like a team of 7 people. And then seeing that they didn't want to let me go, and the contract, part-time contract, ended with my parent like freelancing company. They asked the parent company if like, oh, can we hire Theo exclusively? And they were like, okay. And then they asked me in for negotiations, salary negotiations, right? They did this weird thing that Indonesian companies like to do. They ask your previous salary, right? So they ask your previous salary, and then I give them my pay slip for the past like 3 months or something, and then they saw that, and then they just offered me like a 10 or 15% markup on that, and I was like, no, I don't want to take that. And then they were like, okay, how much do you want? And I was like, well, based on the work that I've done and based on the rates that I've seen on the internet, right? I want 4x of what my previous employer was paying me. It's like 4 times of what my previous employer was paying me. Now you might be thinking, Theo, either you were underpaid by your previous employer or you're fucking insane. I don't know which, because Indonesia has a very wide salary range. But anyway, I negotiated my salary like 4x. And then the HR was like, that's not possible. We can't give that to you. And I laughed at her face. I closed the phone. I didn't say anything. Because I know I had like a big advantage. Like, no, now, don't do this, right? This is only useful if you know like you have an advantage. And also, it kind of ruins your reputation a bit if you do it to the wrong people. But I was young, I was kind of foolish, and I wanted to take a risk, you know? So I did that. And then the next day, they called me again, and then they wanted to match my what I was asking, and then they were like, "Okay, we can give you such and such amount." And I said, "And a laptop." Okay, and a laptop. Yeah, and that's what set me. That's what helped me build like enough savings for me to travel and do things that most Indonesians my age wouldn't be able to do. And I feel very fortunate for that. Either it was because of my skills or it's just dumb luck. I don't know. But I'm pretty grateful. My life is marked with this, like being grateful and taking risks. That's it. Yeah.
Wow, what an incredible story. Especially at a young age, you were able to negotiate four extra salary, unheard of, especially in perhaps your part of the world where you're able to kind of climb the ladder so young. Where do you learn all these negotiation and influence strategies?
I would learn from Jason Halbert if he put up more content, but I guess I've been learning it from Chris Voss. Never split the difference.
Very good. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show. Incredible guest, incredible training partner here in grappling and wrestling. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the world?
Follow me on Twitter at Agustinus Theo, double O.
Subscribe right now.